I have my vino and popcorn.
Okay. All right. I got hot water.
Oh, you're so pure.
Maybe I'll have a glass of wine.
Go with the screening. David, do you have your happy hour vino? And
I just have water.
oh,
I'm just straight edge.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's we've given everybody the prerequisite few minutes to come in, and I think we have like 700 people registered for tonight's program.
Wow.
Yeah.
How great.
yeah.
So welcome to our screening and discussion of the documentary, Vanishing Chinatown, the world of the Mays Family Studio. I'm David Uy with the Chinese American Museum. We're the first and only museum in our nation's capital dedicated to the Chinese American story. So our screening and discussion this evening are made possible through the generous support of AARP Maryland. We thank them for all they do for our museum and our programs. So we're gonna have a brief conversation to set up the film, and then we're gonna stream the documentary. It's about 28 minutes. And then we'll have about a 20-minute discussion and Q&A. So at any time, this is a webinar format, so at any time you could submit your questions and comments using the chat feature in your Zoom window. So this event's being recorded, and the discussion portion, not the documentary portion, but the discussion will be on our YouTube channel in a day or so. So this is also being live streamed on Facebook right now.
Oh.
So tonight we are joined by three amazing guests that help bring this film to life. Emiko Omori is a cinematographer, writer, and director. Vanishing Chinatown is her latest directorial project. In 1968, she was the first female news camera person in San Francisco on the KQED program, Newsroom. In 1990, she wrote and directed Hot Summer Winds, which is a national PBS drama based on the writing of the American author Hisaye Yamamoto.
Mm-hmm.
One of her most acclaimed works is Rabbit in the Moon, a feature documentary about her family's imprisonment in an American concentration camp during World War II. And that won awards at Sundance and received a national Emmy. So Lydia Tanji is Vanishing Chinatown's co-producer, and she's a costume designer. Her credits include Hot Summer Winds and the Joy Luck Club. And she's worked on recreations of numerous televised documentaries. She's a recipient of the Woman Warrior Award from the Pacific Asian American Women Bay Area Coalition. And she's chaired the Oakland Museum's Ethnic Cultural Guild, which put on the first Asian American Pacific Heritage Month celebration. And last but not least, excuse me, I apologize, I'm fighting some allergies here. Wylie Wong is also a producer of this film. He's an art collector, dealer, and Asian art consultant. He's a curator at the Chinese Culture Center. He organized major exhibitions that include paintings of both 20th century master Zhang Deqian and French trained artist Lin Fengmian. He curated the popular exhibit of beautiful ladies, vintage Shanghai deco posters. And he's collaborated with the late historian Jack Chen on Pear Garden in the West, which exhibited the Mays studio photos at the Bank of America headquarters in San Francisco, and also the Wing Luke Museum in Mocha in New York before, and also went to Hong Kong and China. Wylie's also curated several exhibitions at the Triangle Gallery, the San Francisco International Airport and an online exhibition of the Museum of Performing Arts in San Francisco, where he donated 400 prints of May's studio photographs. So he's also a consultant to the Chinese Historical Society. He's former president of the League at the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco and a former board member of the Chinese Cultural Center. So welcome everybody. And as I mentioned, we'll start the film in about 10 minutes. But first, let me ask you, how did you all come together to work on this project? Wylie, maybe we could start with you and you could tell us a little bit about your experience finding these photos.
Well, I was living outside of Chinatown on the eastern slopes of Nob Hill, and I was going on one of my weekly forays to look for old Chinese paintings because that's my interest. Well, at one of the stores, and it was the May studio, a dumpster was in front, and in the dumpster were old photographs. So I just about flipped out because I've always been attracted to Chinatown's visual culture, and to see these photographs in a dumpster was really a revelation. And I knew immediately they were very important.
Yeah, incredible.
Because I had gone to school, and of course I had studied about James Van Der Zee and E.J. Belloc, and there was a revival of interest in the 70s in vintage photography. So I was working in an art gallery at that time that was specializing in early daguerreotypes and French travel photography. And so I was already primed. So when I saw these photographs, I knew that this was an important find. And I was lucky to have the friends like Lydia and Emiko who came on board to help bring this film to its completion.
Emiko, maybe you'd like to go next.
Well, I'm a kind of a latecomer to the project. I mean, I helped a little bit throughout it, shooting some things for them. But of course, I had my own work, so I didn't really get involved too deeply in it. And now maybe about, I don't know, is it 3 years ago now or something, Lydia asked if I would be available to come in and try to make a documentary out of a lot of, they've been shooting a lot. And so it's kind of like, okay, let's see, what do we have here? And for me, the photographs are so extraordinary. That was my real attraction. And to be able to present these wonderful, intimate photographs of San Francisco Chinatown, to present them to the public was really quite an honor for me to be able to participate, because I think their work should be known. And now I think with this movie, more people will get to know their work.
Absolutely. Lydia?
We actually asked Emiko to be our director in the beginning, and she was too busy. So we kept at it, and finally, I think it was like 2017, she felt sorry for us and came on board and whipped it all into shape. And it was, shot in all different formats, hundreds of hours of footage, and she made the story out of it. And then we were really lucky when Corinne Takayama came on board, and she is the granddaughter of the photographers. So she really added the first person narrative and a lot of spunk and spirit. So,
yeah.
And Gail Yamada came on as our executive producer and helped put our website up and helped with all the fundraising, and got us partnered with Spice and with KVIE, and then we and Wendy Slick came on as our consultant. So we were really we have a
good team.
Yeah.
So how long did the project take? And I think I noticed that I'm sorry, say it again.
21 years.
21 years. I noticed that the release date was February of 2020, which is obviously the precipice of the pandemic. How did that affect you getting this movie out to be seen?
Well, it was unfortunate because we were in some festivals that then kind of had to change their way of presenting.
Right.
And so our first presentation then really to the public was through KVIE, the PBS station in Sacramento. And it was a wonderful screening. We were all just kind of getting used to this live streaming, and we had kind of like a webinar thing like this, you know, so in some ways, it reached a lot more people than, say, 1 or 2 screenings in a film festival. So I kind of think that we benefited by that, you know, because the film screening would have been, you know, however many people filled a theater, whereas this one was like, and people all across the country. And
right.
So, you know, it was kind of like we lucked out on that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just to backtrack a little bit, when I came onto the project, you know, we did not have Corinne. And I must say that we were so lucky that we found her, or she found us. I can't remember now. I mean, we had our website, and I don't know, because now we have an association with Stanford, and because Wylie has donated a lot of this material to Stanford, and her son is an alumni of Stanford, and so he happened to, you know, find our website and said, you know, like, my mother is the granddaughter of this, you know, this family. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, how lucky is that?
Serendipity.
And, yes. And then the best part, of course, is she was such a wonderful, warm, and you know, interviewee. I mean, she just added what I call the heart and the soul to the movie. I mean, otherwise it would have been maybe just talking about photography or, you know, something
right.
not personal, because we were having problems finding personal connections, because the son, Corinne's father, had died already, and so again, serendipity, and we're so lucky.
Yeah, as people will see in the screening, I think I loved how you open up with her, which is she herself is discovering and seeing things for the first time. So that was terrific. All right, well, I think this is where, you know, technology has to do what it's supposed to do, but we will start this screening, and again, it takes about 28 minutes, excuse me, and we, the panelists, will shut our cameras off and mute ourselves during the screening, and then we'll come on as soon as we emerge.
Okay.
All right.
See you in 28.
Okay. Whoops.
Just wonderful. Just a reminder to everyone that you can ask questions through our chat or Q&A feature that's built right into Zoom. So we'll do our best to address your comments. You know, one thing about this film, you know, I feel like it's about something that was found, but it's also about something, you know, a lot that's been lost. And it really shows how fragile history is, you know, even with someone like the Mays studio documenting history, you know, the idea that these photos have been thrown in a dumpster, you know, really makes you wonder whether people really see their own lifetimes as, history, worth saving. And, that's, to me, that's one of the things that really strike me about this film.
Is that a question?
That was my statement.
Oh,
I think things are always being thrown out.
Yeah.
And, and for me, when I was in Chinatown at that time, you could find a lot of wonderful things from the 1920s, because Formica and neon were in, so moldering lanterns and carvings, that was passe. So they were available on the streets also. Every night you could go out and, wonderful treasures outside.
Someone asked, where are the photos now, and how many have been? How many photos are there that have been saved, and how have they been scanned or digitized? And what are the plans to exhibit them moving forward? This is like, I think our museum might be interested in this last part.
Well, 700 photographs were retrieved when I was the first one. There's other collectors like George Bertasevich and other dealers have, got in on the game, but I was the first one there, and I only concentrated on the Chinatown scenes and the Chinese opera photographs because I knew those were important.
Right.
The rest is, there's, like I said, there's other, and everything's at Stanford or at the Museum of Performance and Design.
Mm-hmm.
Stanford has digitized, and anybody can see them because they're stored off campus or off site, but you can make an appointment or look through the photographs online and choose the boxes that you want to explore. So that's how they.
Do you think? Obviously, that is not the complete collection of work from that studio. No. Is there ever any? Is there an effort to, or are there photos that have come in from the general public, perhaps their own family photos that have been included, or?
We found photographs in the San Francisco Public Library, for instance, in the history room, and like I said, there are other collections, but no one has ever seen the whole thing. I think I might have been one of the first, and then after I gleaned, it ended up at the flea market in Sausalito.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt here. I'm reading a chat, and this person says that was his grandmother's dentist, that horrible dentist. Kenneth Hong said, that was my grandmother's dentist. I have to admit that part of the challenge was, I love these photographs. Well, how do I get in a photograph of a dentist? I mean, not that to me that's a fabulous photograph. There are lots of fabulous. That one's just to me kind of like a documentary, a photograph. But there was something like, well, we never see a Chinese dentist in Chinatown.
Right.
So we find a way of putting it in there. And I loved, he had these white shoes on, and he looked, very like officious. And so then Corinne told this story, because I think we showed her the picture of this dentist. It goes, oh my goodness. And she goes on about how terrible he was. So that was the challenge, was to try. I just wanted to show as many photographs as possible. So we had to keep finding little stories to take us to those. And, like the whole, to get into the opera, well, here was this wonderful scholar about Chinese opera. And I learned so much, for instance, and I would say this to Lydia, I go, opera, everybody in the West, have this kind of like image of going to the opera, dress up and sit quietly in your seat and enjoy the opera. Dr. Who said, maybe, there just isn't the equivalent word, but he said in China, they were more like commedia dell'arte. They did a lot of things outdoors. And that's why this whole thing about like being newsreel, like making an opera out of some current political scandal going on. And then Dr. Who said, and then people would be selling food and there'd be vendors. And so it wasn't like everybody sat quiet. Kids would be running around. Now, we didn't get into any of the stories of these people going to the opera in Chinatown, but that's what they all said. Oh yeah, you're eating things and the kids are running up and because there weren't babysitters. So no one could like leave their kids at home. They just had to take them to the opera. And then there were these other interesting things, like it was segregated very early, segregated not between white people and other people, but it was like the women had to sit in a special place and the men sat in another place. I don't know why that had to be, you know, why they had to separate the women from the men. And then opera is still quite alive in San Francisco, Chinatown. You know, there are these clubs that get together and they sing and they practice these instruments. I mean, that's a whole movie in itself that hopefully somebody else will make.
Yeah, and actually right now at our museum, we have an exhibit, it's called Golden Threads, Chinese Opera in America, which features a lot of photographs and then also costumes too. Were all the photos, did you come across many photos that were more in a journalistic style, like on the street, or were they always in the studio or on in the theater in a controlled environment?
There were street scenes, and the studio was known for its panoramic cameras. So there was that
360
photograph with the panorama in Walnut Grove. So yeah, there were.
Well, I did try to include, for instance, they're like this building with a lot of flags on it. Well, that's obviously maybe the opening of the building or something, and he's there and he's documented that. And then the dragon during New Year's and stuff. But I don't know if just the photographs we're aware of, at least the ones I have seen, there aren't not that many like documentary things. Although he was called to go to document like these big picnics and big events and stuff like that, you know, but not just sort of street photo kind of things, you know, very few that we saw in what was, you know, the collections that we looked at.
Yeah, you know, I wonder if he really saw his photography as just a way to make a living, or did he see himself as an artist? You know, you look at how beautiful these photos are. You wonder how, you know, what was his own impression of his art. And then you think about, you know, you fast forward to him potentially standing by while they're being thrown away. You know, it goes back to, you know, how do people see their own histories or their own work at the time? Lydia, what would you say was the most challenging part of this whole project for you?
Raising money, we didn't really raise money till the very end when Gail came on. And so all of our core group did it for free. And we just did it because, you know, we were passionate about the project and the photographs. And so that was hard. And when Gail came on, it was like she really helped us get the website and the grants and things like that. So we were able to actually pay some of the crew and hard you know, what do you call it, bills. So that was hard.
I'm very grateful to Emiko for teasing out a story out of all these photographs, that we had a wonderful narrative come out of it. So,
especially in a case where you don't really have a lot of narrative attached to it too.
Yes.
Right. Well, may I just go back to something you asked Lydia, or maybe you were asking all of us, like, was he just a commercial photographer? No, I believe he got into it. I think he was like a theater director, you know, like in the studio. These days, this kind of photo studio is really gone, which is too bad. And I see the photo studio as kind of where you actually can realize your dreams. You know, you're maybe poor, but you come into the studio and they put a suit on you and you can, you know, this was the dream that you had when you came to America. So, and I think he probably, you know, did some direction and, you know, made them, help them realize their dreams. Then the fact that, like, the big photograph that's behind Wylie, when he says, well, this was one of the first I got, you know, it's like, it's a big giant size poster. And you see, he has hand painted that whole portrait, and he hand painted all these other ones, because these were posters to go for the opera at the, you know, that was on. It was like the posters at the theater. And, you know, they had lots of operas too. They might have had like several a week. So he'd have to be preparing photographs and the things to go into the newspapers. And I mean, this is a busy guy. And so just by looking at his work, I do believe he just got into it and loved it.
Yeah.
And especially with his sense of humor, like with his buddies and the fishing pig, that was like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious.
Yeah, I feel like that's how I would like to think of him, as seeing his own art, because you know, it seems like such a shame to create such beautiful art and not, you know, maybe appreciate it yourself. Someone asked if there was any effort, or if you found a way to trace people's descendants, people in the photographs.
No, but some people have recognized relatives viewing the film. So that's been wonderful. A reuniting thing.
Well, and Stanford has asked, like, they would like you to look through the collection, and if you have any like information about any of the people. And the thing is, you know, they were like just the hometown photographers. So you go into like one of this little restaurant we went into, well, there's a Maze photo studio of the restaurant, and you go to people's homes and they have, oh yeah, you know, they were maybe, well, at the beginning, you know, they were the only ones, but then eventually there were other photo studios. So, you know, but there weren't that many. And so when you go into people's albums, photo albums and things, there are lots of photos from these photo studios. We haven't done an extensive research on that. I think they are doing some of that down at Stanford. I think one of the scholars look into stuff like that, you know, so hopefully, you know.
Yeah, and again, you know, you just think of the serendipity that came about to expose these photos, and then, you know, just that it's just opened up the door to, you know, these potential leads to get more, maybe to find more photographs, or to get more family information for these photographs. But, you know, that window, I guess, starts closing fast. Someone asked, did you come across supporting documents to indicate the size of the total collection, or maybe more the breadth of work, scope of work from the studio?
No, I don't think so. I think they were in the thousands, because George has a lot, and then Richard Rosenthal had some. He's in Philadelphia, and it's just been all over. So
I think George has over 1,000, I do believe.
Yeah.
And he has some of those wonderful backdrops, those painted, wonderful backdrops.
Yes.
And that painter left San Francisco and went to New York and opened up a Chinese restaurant. And also that kind of photoshopping before photoshopping, you know, not that photographers weren't doing that, but collaging images. And so being able to make family photos, really family photos, you know, with all the family members. That was a kind of a revelation for me, because when I was first looking through those photos, I did feel they were a little bit odd. Like some of the proportions were off. Of course, when that like kind of giant kid next to his father came along, it was like, oh, we get it. This is like, you know, he's putting this stuff together. But did a really masterful job. If you can see, you hardly see a seam between the photos, and managed to move like one child over to another child. Like, that's a lot of work. So
yeah,
that's what I mean. I think he just got into it.
I know Mocha in New York has in their collection a pretty elaborate family portrait where, you know, it is very obvious that people are pasted in because people at the time were not, you know, able to come to re-enter into the country, so that they were all pieced together. And you know, there's just so much history that is explained in that one photo. Is there something that you see would be a natural progression for these photos in terms of, you know, what's next for them?
Well, Wylie and I are in talks with Mark Johnson about an exhibition and book or catalog. So we're just in the beginning stages. So we're having meetings with different other organizations, Stanford, and we'll see. We're hoping, and the publishers all want money attached, so we need to start fundraising and things like that. So, but we're in the beginning stages of this at this time.
So, a question from the group says, "How has working on this project helped you better understand or changed your understanding of the history of San Francisco's Chinatown?" You guys didn't know there was going to be a quiz after the...
Yeah, well, I didn't know much about Cantonese opera until I saw all these wonderful photos, and that spurred me to, you know, look into it further. And Nancy Rao's book, and you know, it's just amazing. So it's a whole subculture or culture that hasn't really been explored.
So someone, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, Lydia and Wylie pursued many avenues, and they got a lot of wonderful footage of these singing groups in Chinatown who get together and sing opera. And then there was that very young woman who was learning how to play various instruments. Since the little opera sequence was so short, I didn't get to show, like, there's an orchestra, because these are all people who are here. I mean, they're not like, that's not a troupe that has come from China. These are people who are in San Francisco Chinatown.
Right.
So we've got the orchestra. I don't know, there were maybe looked like 20 or 30 pieces in the orchestra pit. And then these people who are, they're not professional, but they've been doing this kind of like, oh my goodness, having a senior moment, our character who does the opera in Bosco, you know. I mean, they love it. And I actually had not looked closely at Chinese opera, and I love the costumes, and I can see why they would do The Thief of Baghdad. There's a fable with lots of, you know, imaginary things and characters. And of course, we love that guy who, what's his name? He went to Texas and he learned how to rope, and he learned how to crack a whip.
Wanta King.
He's the one on our poster. We love
Zorro.
Yes, it's Zorro.
Well, we are almost out of time. And I think someone asked this question, and it would be a good way for us to wrap up. But how can people see this documentary or share it with their friends?
Isn't it going to play for a few days after today?
It will for the registrants of the webinar. They will be able to access the streaming for, I think, for 2 more days. Okay. And then...
And I think it's going to have a part at the end where it's going to have like our website and all that's going to be on that.
Yep. Right? We will, we'll put up a slide in a minute that has the website, but also all the registrants will receive an follow-up email with various links and information. And then also, if you go to the YouTube channel where we post this discussion, we're not going to post the documentary. There'll be information in the information section of the YouTube page. So,
and Lydia, you did include Stanford in that list, right?
Yes, I believe so. And CAM is our distributor.
Right.
So any screenings and that kind of thing is through them
For buying.
for educational and
Right.
Okay,
CAM is the Center for Asian American Media
Yeah.
in San Francisco, right?
yeah, and I think there's a link, isn't there at the end?
Yeah, I'm gonna put up, let me get this slide up here. Let's see.
And we have DVDs for,
Yeah.
one can.
Okay, and as I mentioned, this will be sent out. Well, thank you to our panelists. And thank you for joining us this evening. And special thanks to AARP Maryland for sponsoring this program. And thank you to Louisa Sorkness, our program coordinator, and Shinren, our operations manager. So if, if you would like to share this, to watch this again, or to share it with a friend, this event has been recorded, and the discussion only will be on our YouTube channel. But please follow these links about other ways to view this or possibly purchase a copy of this film. So, well, thank you so much. And this has really been a joy. And we'll say goodnight to everybody.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
David.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.